locals of Niterói, Brazil, stumbled upon an eerie scene that defied explanation. It was August 1966, and two men, Manuel Pereira de Cruz and Miguel Jose Viana, laid lifeless in the underbrush. Both were dressed formally in suits, with matching raincoats draped over them, and most unsettling of all, each wore a crudely fashioned mask made completely of lead. It was hand-cut to fit over their eyes only. Beside their bodies were a handful of peculiar items: a partially empty water bottle, two neatly folded towels, and a small notebook containing cryptic instructions. The notes, scrawled in Portuguese, read, 1630, be at the specified location. 1830, ingest capsules. After the effect, protect metals. Await signal. What could that mean? There was no signs of a struggle, no blood, no injuries, and no evidence of foul play. The men's bodies appeared calm, as though they had simply laid down and waited. Investigators later discovered receipts for the water bottle and materials used to craft the lead masks. They were preserved carefully in the men's pockets, suggested they were meticulously prepared. The location itself added to the enigma. Morro do Vintém, with its dense vegetation and isolation, was rumored to be a site of strange lights and supernatural occurrences. It wasn't just a place that people visited casually. Combined with the cryptic note and the absence of any obvious cause of death, every detail seemed to suggest something deliberate. Yet, utterly, every forensic analysis provided zero answers. The delay in retrieving the bodies left them too decomposed for toxicity testing, and this meant that the mysterious capsules mentioned in the note could never be confirmed or identified. The purpose of the lead mask remained unclear. Were they shielding their eyes from radiation, light, or something beyond human understanding? This is the chilling story of the lead mask case, a puzzle that has haunted investigators for decades. What Manuel and Miguel were trying to achieve, nobody could tell. Were they conducting some kind of secret experiments, preparing for contact with UFOs, or following instructions from an otherworldly force? Decades later, the case remains unsolved, and somehow as eerie as the day they were discovered. This is truly a mind-boggling story. I really think you're going to enjoy it, so please stick around. So the two men, Manuel Pereira de Cruz and Miguel Jose Viana, weren't just colleagues. These were two close friends and electronics technicians who shared a fascination with the unknown. Hailing from Campos do Goitacazes, nearly 200 kilometers north of Rio de Janeiro, their interest in electronics extended beyond work. They were captivated by the idea of harnessing spiritual energy. Their behavior, though, in the days leading up to their deaths, grew increasingly strange. On August 17, 1966, they told their families they were traveling to Sao Paulo, Brazil, to purchase materials for work. However, they ended up detouring to the town of Niterói, where witnesses saw them buying items that would later deepen the mystery: 2 raincoats, a water bottle, and lead sheets, which were then used for crafting the masks. And by August 20th, the pair was last seen alive climbing the steep and remote slopes of Morro do Vintém, an effort requiring deliberate intent to navigate as it's a treacherous climb. Adding to the mysteries, both men had told their families they were on an important mission but gave zero details. Miguel's sister recalled him appearing anxious, as though anticipating something significant. Yet, to witnesses, their interactions remained calm and routine. What could have driven these men on this meticulous yet puzzling journey? Why the lead masks? Why the cryptic note? And why the arduous hike to such a desolate location? The final days leave behind far more questions than answers, and the only thing I'm sure of is that these two men intended to be there. The investigations into the deaths of Manuel and Miguel only deepened the mystery. The lead masks, inferred to be crudely handmade from thin lead sheets, were likely fashioned by the men themselves, but their purpose would remain unclear. Speculation pointed that they could have been used as shielding from radiation, maybe for a bright flash of light, though there's no evidence of any such hazards in and around the site. There's no evidence of radiation, and there was no evidence of any kind of explosion or anything like that. It's also important to note that the lead masks were only designed to cover the men's eyes and nowhere else in their body. So they would have been, if there was radiation, every other part of their body exposed. The police confirmed that there was no injuries, no evidence of foul play at the site, no disturbance of the scene at all. Two men laying there as if somehow they were dropped off by an invisible force. Police tried to track down references in the note to a signal, and it revealed absolutely nothing. The site itself was tested for chemicals, which again revealed absolutely nothing. In the end, the investigators closed without any answers, leaving behind only cryptic clues and unanswered questions. The deliberate preparation that the men underwent prior to their deaths was enough to tell the police that they intended to be exactly where they were found. But it leaves us with a huge hanging question as to why. If you guys are as intrigued by this and enjoying this story, please consider liking the video. Also, please consider sharing with somebody. It really helps the channel grow. To hear your thoughts on this case, like what do you think drove these guys up there? But what I can tell you is a lot of people have theories that they put together to try and explain exactly what happened in 1966. And let's get into it. Theories surrounding the lead mask case span the entire spectrum of the plausible to bizarre, but each offers a glimpse into the cultural and historical backdrop of the time. From UFO sightings to occult rituals, the possibilities are as strange as the scene itself. Let's dive a little deeper into some of the most prominent ideas and theories surrounding what happened to these two men. One of the most compelling theories is actually tied to Brazil's burgeoning UFO lore. Especially during the mid-1960s, UFO sightings were rampant in South America, and Brazil seemed to be at the epicenter of many famous cases. Only 9 years before Manuel and Miguel's deaths, in 1957, the Antonia Villas Boas abduction shocked the world. Now, Villas Boas was a farmer from Minas Gerais, and he claimed to have been abducted by extraterrestrials and subjected to bizarre experiments aboard their spacecraft. His account became one of the first widely publicized cases of alien abductions. This case fueled public fascination with extraterrestrial phenomenon, particularly among fringe groups interested in spiritualism and cosmic energy. The cryptic note found near the men said, "Await signal," and the lead masks suggest preparations for some kind of encounter. Witnesses even reported seeing strange lights hovering over Morro de Vintem on the night the two men died. Obviously, this fueled speculation that Manuel and Miguel were attempting to contact beings from another world. Could the lead mask have been designed to shield their eyes from radiation or blinding light during a UFO encounter? Another theory posits that Manuel and Miguel were conducting an amateur scientific experiment, something that involved electromagnetic energy or radiation. Both men were electronics technicians by trade, and their profession required an understanding of technical equipment and energy manipulation. It's not crazy to think that they might have attempted to build a device or conduct an experiment. The lead masks in this scenario could have been crafted as protection from harmful radiation. This theory isn't without precedent. In the Soviet Union during the 1950s, amateur scientists, often referred to as radio enthusiasts, were involved in dangerous experiments with high efficiency and high frequency devices. And in several documented cases, such experiments resulted in accidents or unexplained deaths, eerily similar to what may have occurred on August 20th, 1966. However, investigators found no signs of radiation, chemicals, or experimental equipment at the scene. And without any evidence of a device or experiment, this theory remains speculative, but it definitely raises the possibility of a tragic miscalculation by two men chasing scientific curiosity. Now, the one thing to me that goes against this theory right off the bat is if they were trying to protect themselves from radiation, why are the lead masks only on their eyes? Doesn't make a lot of sense, especially considering they're dudes. The first thing they would have covered is their junk. We'll move on. Now, another common theory that pops up is these two guys might have had involvement with some kind of spiritual movement, a cult or occult, where they practiced some kind of rituals of mysticism. Now, in the 60s, a particular form of mysticism was being practiced in Brazil and was kind of popular, and it was called Kardechism, and was founded by French educator Allan Kardec. This practice emphasized communications with spirits and the study of spiritual energy. Manuel and Miguel reportedly shared an interest in this realm, which aligns with the cryptic nature of their final preparations. The instructions in the note, ingesting capsules, protecting metals, and awaiting the signal, have been interpreted as part of a spiritual ritual. The lead masks may have been more of a symbol, a way to block earthly interference or protect souls during their metaphysical experience. There are parallels to other ritualistic deaths. In 1997, the infamous Heaven's Gate mass suicide in the US saw followers take their own lives in preparation to ascend to an extraterrestrial spacecraft that they believed was following the Hale-Bopp comet. Like Manuel and Miguel, The Heaven's Gate members left behind instructions and symbolic items, highlighting how belief in transcendence can lead to tragic consequences. So I guess it's possible that these guys did just drink some kind of purple Kool-Aid or wound up the victim of a cult-type leader. However, the one thing that kind of works against this is that the investigation had no evidence of them actually being tied to any of this. Now, another common theory that pops up a lot is that this is part of, firstly, either a hoax or some kind of hoax involving foul play. Some would argue that Manuel and Miguel are the victims of foul play, lured to this deadly situation under false pretenses, perhaps for a robbery. However, a lot of people dismiss this theory, as do I, because it just doesn't make a lot of sense to lure somebody to a mountain in the middle of nowhere, take their stuff, and put lead masks in their eyes. And also going against this theory is the fact that these guys, there was witnesses that observed these guys going around town making preparations for this. So this was something that those two were planning as opposed to someone else planning on luring them to. Now, someone else suggested, though, that they could have been essentially gaslit by somebody else and manipulated by someone who knew about their fascination with spiritual energy and UFOs, and they were convinced to climb Morro do Vintém to carry out this ritual or experiment. And we've seen historical cases of similar deceptions add weight to this possibility. In the 16th century in Germany, Johann Georg Faust, who inspired the real Faustian legend, was infamous for exploiting people's desperation for knowledge and wealth, luring them into dangerous and often fatal situations. Could someone have preyed upon Manuel and Miguel's beliefs in a similar way? It's not out of the realm of possibility for somebody with kind of psychopath tendencies to play these guys for fools and essentially lead them to their own death in a manipulative and calculative way for their own jollies. So it's not crazy to think that somebody could have been messing with these guys, but the police investigation into these guys didn't reveal any connections or any evidence of coercion. And when you combine that with the fact that these guys went through such deliberate preparations only to leave behind so many unanswered questions, it doesn't make me think that other people were involved. Like, I think this story ends with these two guys. Otherwise, the police would have dug up some evidence or somebody would have came forward. So whether this was part of a spiritual cult where they were essentially being led by some crazy dude to kill themselves as part of a ritual, whether somebody was manipulating these guys and with kind of evil intent to fuck with them, or whether they were carrying out a scientific experiment, is something we may never know. But people to this day are still trying to figure this out. Despite modern advancements in toxicology, there's very little that could be done without preserved samples. In more recent years, the case has been revisited by journalists and researchers. In 2014, a Brazilian journalist named Ademar Javard, editor for the Brazilian UFO magazine, re-examined the possibility of extraterrestrial involvement. Javard suggests that the men's deaths may have been part of a larger wave of UFO sightings in the region, including the reports of strange lights over Morro do Vintém. However, the evidence is purely anecdotal. There's no concrete links between the lights and the deaths. Adding to the eerie reputation at the site, locals have continued to report unusual phenomena on and around Morro do Vintém. Stories seem to persist of flickering lights over the hillside, unexplained noises at night, and a lingering sense of unease in the area. Some even believe the site is cursed, tied to the tragic fate of Manuel and Miguel. In recent years, online communities have taken up to the mystery, crowdsourcing information and attempting to analyze the note, also attempting to use other modern tools such as machine learning algorithms to try and see if there's a hidden meaning to it, but no definitive conclusions have been reached from this. The cryptic reference to a signal continues to perplex, with no consensus on whether it was meant literally or symbolically. Despite all of these efforts, the case remains as enigmatic as ever. The lack of hard evidence, no capsules, no radiation, and no external injuries has left the story trapped in the realm of speculation. And yet, it's precisely this absence of answers that keeps the lead mask case alive in public imagination. It's a mystery that refuses to be solved and still as strange as the day that it happened. Over 50 years later, the lead mask case still baffles investigators and captivates those who hear it. Was this an experiment in human limits? A fatal attempt to contact another world? Or simply two men caught up in forces beyond their understanding? Please consider sharing this video with somebody you know and subscribing to the channel, giving us a like, and dropping a comment. Thank you again for listening, and I'll be back again next week with another cool story.